Hello, my name is Justin McClue, and I'm here today with
Will Sloan.
And you're listening to the Important Cinema Club. And today, we're talking about David Fincher. It's finally time to shine a light on the darkness of a filmmaker who I feel doesn't really get the attention that he deserves.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to struggle through that sentence.
Listen, folks, we've done a lot of episodes on really obscure topics lately, and I think we owe it to everyone, you know, to talk about a
people
filmmaker.
People aren't still jazzed about us just taking trips and talking about them.
No, it's time to eat our vegetables and talk about one of the most popular filmmakers, you know, just a name brand guy that everybody likes.
That if you are our age, you probably went through that 7 Fight Club period where you were like, this is the filmmaker.
Did you have a Fight Club poster in your dorm room?
I never had a Fight Club poster, but I loved Fight Club when I saw it. I don't think we need to talk about it too much because we did talk about it in an episode we did on 1999.
Oh, is that true?
Ages ago,
God. Can I just say that this episode took 70 takes to get the perfect... You're listening to take number 70
You know what I'm going to do for this episode? My approach to it. I am not going to talk about how these films are made. I want to discuss them just as films. Take away the mystique, judge them as the movies that they are.
That's interesting because in my notes here, I have all the things you've already heard about how they're made, you know?
Because I think that's a way to approach Fincher, because anytime you talk about him, you talk about his working method. But then you look at the films, and he would say it himself, they are just paperback novel adaptations.
Yeah, and I think this is getting at the heart of my ambivalence about David Fincher. So, okay, first of all, David Fincher has made a few movies that I think are like great.
Zodiac.
Social Network, like near masterpieces, and a lot of other movies that I think are very good, like Gone Girl, really watchable movie. Fight Club, really watchable movie. So he's good. Let's get that on the record.
I would say he's great.
Yeah, but he's never been a favorite of mine.
Not even, you didn't go through a Fight Club period where you're like, this movie really understands the male experience.
I mean, I certainly liked Fight Club. I wouldn't say I've gone through a Fight Club period, but there is something, and maybe this will sound like received wisdom, but I happen to believe it's true. There is something about the movies where, you know, he's cultivated this Kubrickian mystique around himself. You know, the 70 takes, the precise visual language, attention to detail, all that stuff. He's one of those like supreme geniuses of film, godlike Promethean figures. And the movies themselves, as you say, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are sort of like airport paperback stuff.
Now, I am an adult figure in my life, a mom, perhaps a dad, and I'm sitting down to watch a David Fincher movie. Do I subconsciously absorb all of this grand 70 take master at work watching something like The Game?
No.
Oh, no,
okay.
Right?
Well, can I just say, like, the perfectionist thing, I know you said you didn't want to talk about how the movies are made, but I do want to get something off my chest right at the start here. When you tell me that some of those scenes in Zodiac took 50 or 60 or 70 takes, I think, why? Like, if you tell me that Robert Bresson did 70 takes to, like, get his actors to stop acting and get to the just being, I get that.
Well, David Fincher says he does this because he wants to be sure that he has what he wants, and also that you do it so many times that it's not a Bressonian thing to kind of strip away any, you know, kind of
artifice.
Or, you know, take on the material. He wants the actors to do something that breaks away from what they rehearsed. That, like, in the moment, because they've done it so many times, something slips through. An example is, like, at one point at the beginning of Social Network during the conversation, Jesse Eisenberg leans forward and says the other character's name kind of angrily, which he had never done in any of the other takes.
Well, I mean, I guess that speaks for itself. And as to the, like, visual style of the movie, where he doesn't use handheld, he has this particular method of having the camera move like at the same rhythm that the actors are moving to sort of like create this emotional identification between the audience and the actors, which is odd to me because I don't feel an emotional identification with these characters most of the time.
Well, I was listening to the commentary for Panic Room, and he says, you know, we kind of took all the shakes and stuff out of the camera moves because I just like it that it feels like a computer's doing it, that there's like an artificiality there.
Right.
And I go, cool, that's your thing. For
Right.
me, I would like a little bit more, I don't know, presence there, perhaps.
Well, you know, it is interesting that so many of his movies are about control in some way, or like many of them are about like really methodical killers. You know, many of them are about people like doing power games over other people. In the case of the game, literally a game. And the movies themselves also exhibit this like incredible amount of control over them. But then, Fight Club, the Edward Norton character, like it's very much about like that control being stifling. The Edward Norton character, he has this orderly, yuppie lifestyle. He has the sensible career, the IKEA furniture, and he's dying inside until he meets the destabilizing influence of Brad Pitt. I won't spoil the twist ending of the film.
I don't remember it, so when I give it another watch.
Or like, The Killer, the recent one with Michael Fassbender, it's like that's also a movie, like people talk about it being autobiographical, the guy who's like so orderly until the little bit of disorder comes in. So that's obviously something he's wrestling with both in his life and his art.
But here's the thing about when you compare David Fincher to Kubrick. Kubrick, 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yes.
Barry Lyndon.
Yes.
Even Eyes Wide Shut, which is creating a completely artificial feel to the entire experience.
Right.
David Fincher, Gone Girl, The Game.
Right. Yeah. One of them is a great artist, and the other, you're like, I get that he makes commercials.
Yeah, he's obsessed with control.
Isn't it interesting also that, I'm not sure where this fits in, but obviously there's a consistency to how his movies look and feel, but there is not a consistency to how seriously his movies are taken or how good they are. So it's like you've got The Social Network and Zodiac, which are like part of the Hollywood canon now. They're basically considered like mainstream masterpieces. Then you've got Panic Room, The Game, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, movies that are basically considered like elevated trash, right?
But in circles of people that are obsessed with film, they are elevated to like a holy level. That like they get dissected, every shot, every vibe. Do you think that comes out of Alien 3, David Fincher, huge music video director up until then, making iconic videos left and right?
Madonna. Yeah.
Alien 3 gets screwed with. That there is that kind of almost Terry Gilliam, like, he can't make the movie that he wants to make. And then 7, massive hit. Like, defines almost a decade for what it is.
Yeah, aesthetically and otherwise. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there was like a kind of like primal trauma that came from the Alien 3 experience that still like nags him and has informed the rest of his career. What's also amazing about the Alien 3 experience in the context of his career is it seems to me that since then, he's basically operated very well within the system. Like, for all the Kubrickian mystique that he has, for all the perfectionism, like he works at a very high level of budget and he has delivered a lot of hits, and he seems to work, he seems to make ones for me and ones for them.
Well, his budgets are all, if you look like normal budgeted things, absurdly high. Personally, I don't care.
Right.
And David Fincher will even say, I know how much this is going to cost if I make this movie. This is not me going out of control because I don't know what I'm doing. It's, I know exactly what I want, and this is why it's going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars for a movie about The Social Network.
Right. But getting back to like the heart of the matter, the beating heart of the matter, for all of this Kubrickian technique, yeah, you look at something like, again, some of these movies are great. You look at something like Panic Room, and it's like, is there all this perfectionism for a movie that's basically like 3 stars? That's just like a really normal thriller.
Wait, correction. The Facebook movie only cost $40 million.
Okay.
Which is, you know what? A steal for a David Fincher movie.
Yeah, totally reasonable.
But, so you look at these movies, and other than Fight Club, which is his most showy film, that is like a music video director film where every scene is a new technique to tell you this information. But like him making Panic Room, like that's what I like about him, that he's always seemingly trying to pull himself back. Panic Room was a reaction to him saying it feels like in Fight Club, most of the movie making process was going to in a truck to a different location and then just watching them set up to do one shot that lasted 10 seconds and then move to the next location. So he's like, I just want it to be in one place and I will obsess about it the entire time. I will previs the entire film. So at the beginning of the day, we will show the cast and crew what I want, and we will then try to recreate those shots exactly.
Okay, so Panic Room, not considered one of his like great movies, but certainly a movie that is like watched and enjoyed. This is the one he made after Fight Club, which
was not a box office success.
Exactly. So this movie feels like well, in some ways it feels like a retreat. It's a very conventional, like star-driven, high-concept thriller that's easy to sell and market. It's a one long night. Jodie Foster and her daughter Kristen Stewart are like trapped in this panic room, basically, where they go to protect themselves from the three burglars. And the three burglars, Dwight Yoakam, Jared Leto, and Forrest Whitaker, it's like they have their own drama. Forrest Whitaker's, it's kind of a formulaic story, and there aren't a lot of surprises.
Are you trying to say that the master of suspense himself, David Mordecai Kep, is not bringing the goods to this movie?
David Kep is a master of a certain kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That's what I'll say.
So this movie, every time I watch it, I go in being like, all right, I'm ready to go. And I'm like, boy, this is long. Yeah. The tension is not ratcheted up in the way that I would expect it from a film like this. And my main criticism is one that we spend too much time with these criminals from the get-go, completely diffusing any of the tension of the situation that we're in.
Yeah, you're right. It's like, it's over 2 hours long, or
I think no, or is it just shorter? Under? Okay, it's hour 45 actually. It feels 2 hours.
Okay, so. It definitely feels 2 hours. Yeah. Like it doesn't have. What's famous about this movie, what everyone talked about when it came out, is those like long CGI assisted takes of the camera like going through the house.
Watching it today, there's a lot less of those than I imagined or remembered.
And the feel of those scenes is not like when Dario Argento does a shot like that.
No. Well, because that's practical.
Right.
And that like there is just a whole mechanism behind those shots.
And when Argento does it, it's not always from the POV of the killer, but it might as well be. It is infused with like a killer's eye. But when Fincher does it, it's infused with David Fincher's eye, which is cool and precise.
Sterile.
Yeah,
yes.
And sterile. And anyway, you watch this movie and it feels like, he's doing some interesting things with the space in it, but I think there's a bit of a tension between how precise and airtight and sterile the style is
versus the movie, which is flabby and just kind of there.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know, can we get our hands dirty a little bit? Like, can it be a little shorter, a little meaner?
You want to be like, you got 3 weeks to shoot this movie, here's a house, go and do it. I think that would be a more interesting version of this film.
I mean, honestly, I would like it if the shots like were a little more careless, like let's get a little more life in here.
A little bit more intimacy, I guess, was the scenario, which, is all about people being trapped in one room. I mean, that's what the premise is at the beginning of the film. Mm-hmm. Now, how do you compare it to someone like Hitchcock, though? Where, like, Fincher always talks about Hitchcock, and, like, Panic Room, his original approach was Nicole Kidman is going to be in this film, and she'll be, like, an icy, unknowable blonde, like you would see maybe in a Hitchcock film.
It is interesting, because I feel a lot more emotionally invested in most of the Hitchcock movies. Mm-hmm. And
what's the difference? Those are also often big and flabby.
I'm trying to figure it out, right? Because Hitchcock is also,
a precise guy.
Sometimes sterile. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, maybe there's just something kind of uncompromising about the world that Hitchcock creates.
Is there something less fun about David Fincher movies?
Yes, actually. I think you've got it. Yeah. Like in the Hitchcock movies, like Hitchcock has a bit of that Argento touch, right? Well, you could say Argento has a Hitchcock touch. It's like he likes it. Like what Hitchcock likes when somebody gets killed.
But have you ever heard David Fincher talk? Like he likes this stuff. And he's very funny too when he talks about, and he understands the process and like what he's going for. But when I watch the movies, I don't personally feel it.
So Hitchcock likes it when somebody dies, and he likes the killing, and he likes the guilt that the person feels after. Fincher likes control. He likes games. He likes deceit. He likes power. He likes all the things sort of circling around the beating heart itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But because of that, you're circling the heart, and you don't have the heart in the movie.
And so I often feel like sometimes it feels like a maze without a center,
It all depends on what subject that he's tackling, right? Because I think that works in The Killer, the last movie he made, because it is about a hollow character at the center of it doing all of these things, while in Panic Room, that's a little bit more difficult when I don't always feel that tension that the film is supposed to be generating, because it is so precise.
Well, yeah, and also like Hitchcock in some of those movies, he hits at some real and some really unique feelings. Like take Rope, okay? That like basically gay couple in the middle of it.
What?
I know. Would you believe it? I cracked the code. But anyway, the gay couple in the middle of it who are like doing a murder basically to prove a point. And one of them like is obviously very sexually aroused by the murder. You don't get anything that provocative in Panic Room, right?
No.
Like Panic Room is basically like these stock characters enacting a really stock drama in the middle of a show reel.
Now, are you comparing it to Rope because Panic Room has those stylistic ticks?
I think so, yeah.
What I would compare Panic Room is probably Dial M for Murder, which is also
Honestly, even Dial M for Murder, it's like
got a little bit of more life there.
Well, Ray Milland in the middle of that movie as this also guy who's like doing it as a game, but like
when you look at the criminals in Panic Room, I can see what Fincher is going for with Forrest Whitaker as a more sympathetic guy. Then you have Jared Leto as the loose cannon and Dwight Yoakam as the kind of unknown. Like, that is perfect on paper, but the way that it's presented is it's just kind of there.
I mean, it's very symmetrical, you know?
But like, there's something that like in Panic Room that I bounce off. Panic Room does start to win me over near the end. There's that very visceral moment where Dwight Yoakam gets his finger stuck in the door when it closes.
I like the suspense of Jodie Foster at the door with the cop. I think that's pretty good.
And that like David Fincher, when he gets those fingers stuck, he like just rests in that. Like, it's not a moment that happened, then you move on. It's you have to sit in it as he's like, and he can't get his fingers out of that door until minutes later.
Justin and I very consciously watched two movies that are sort of like the lesser Fincher movies. Like,
yeah, Benjamin Button, right?
Well, not that lesser.
Mank, right? No, we watched
lesser movies that we still wanted to watch.
Yes, that's right. Benjamin Button is a movie that, like, boy, Fincher wanted to make that movie for so long, and then he did it, and you're like, yeah, there it is.
It is a bit of a wild career, though, because, like, yeah, they all have this, like, very similar style, but then there are some that are, like, failed prestige movies, and then there are others that are sort of pulp movies.
My favorite anecdote about Benjamin Button is that got a Criterion Blu-ray release. Incorrect. They bought the rights to the Criterion logo so David Fincher could have a Criterion release of his film.
It has a spine number, right?
I don't know.
Wow.
Like, because he just bought the right, because he's like, I want a Criterion. Kind of like Michael Bay being like, give Armageddon and The Rock Criterion releases.
Can we do that for Gold Ninja Video? Can we?
We probably have to buy.
How much does it cost?
And Gold
I'm willing
Ninja
to pay up to $1,000.
Wow.
Let's do this
to get like an official Criterion.
Actually, I'm not.
No. Gold Ninja Video is the only stamp of approval that we need.
That's right.
So The Game is one that we watched.
Yeah.
And is The Game something you would see on like TBS all the time? Because I feel it was like a staple.
I've never seen it from beginning to end until now. Yes.
Wow.
That's another reason I wanted to watch it, to cross it off the list.
Now, the game starts and you're like, boy, this is so long.
Yeah.
This is a movie that is made in the wake of a man that had a huge hit with Seven. Do you know how much this movie costs, as I break every rule about not talking about how these movies are made?
How much?
$70 million.
Okay.
And I believe this is the one that was supposed to be directed by Jonathan Mostow of Breakdown fame.
He's an associate producer or something.
And it was supposed to star Kyle MacLachlan and Bridget Fonda.
Okay.
And it's like, I can see that.
I might have liked Kyle MacLachlan in this a little more, actually.
I agree with you.
Because Michael Douglas is great. He's a terrific actor, but he plays it very consciously, dialed down, very reserved all the way through. And there are some of these Fincher movies, like The Social Network. I think Jesse Eisenberg's performance is like very uningratiating in a way that works. But I don't know, in this movie,
this film, it really puts a lot on the fact that Michael Douglas is bulletproof as a leading man. Like, think of how he came up. He just played scumbag after scumbag. He started a movie which was like, can you believe I was sexually harassed at work by a woman? Yeah. And that was like the biggest hit ever.
Yeah.
In the Barry Levinson classic, Disclosure. And that was, I think, one of the biggest hits of that year.
I mean, Basic Instinct, Fatal Attraction.
Yeah.
What a run.
People love Michael Douglas. I mean, for the longest time, Michael Douglas as a performer was like, I'm not my dad. I don't have the charisma or the crimes he may have committed, as far as we know. He said, I'm going to be a producer. And then slowly started getting roles, and people are like, we love this Douglas, let's see his butt. And like, he always plays like scumbags, even in like War of the Roses, like ultimate scumbag. And in this movie, he's a scumbag. But the big problem with the film as a viewer is like, I don't care about what happens to him.
Yes, and I think this is it too. And this is, well, so a lot of people like this movie, and that's good for them. I mean, the movie's fine.
We're making people furious this episode. They're like, how dare you?
We did David Fincher because we wanted to do a director everyone likes, and now here we are, being nothing but ambivalent. But I don't know, like this movie, it's like, I don't think there are a lot of really compelling ideas here, frankly.
Well,
do you?
I like the Kafka-esque, like, what is real, what is not.
Yeah, that's good.
And in a Kafka kind of sense, I mean, and one of the issues with the script is that, like, Michael Douglas has no kind of choices he makes until the end of the movie. He is basically reactive, and I gotta be honest, a bit of a jerk throughout the film. Like, not helping anybody, not doing anything except for himself.
Which, is important, I guess.
Yes, I do think it is important as well.
But then what is it all building to?
It builds to him, spoiler alert for the game, committing suicide.
Right.
And, did you ever see the documentary The Bridge?
Yes, I did.
There's like, everybody who jumps says that, like, when I jumped, and I realized, like, what am I doing? Every problem I have, I could deal with it in some way, except for the one that I just made right now. So that's what it's building to. But at the end of the day, like, he's going to go back to work and just be an asshole still. Like,
right. Well, there's the final twist.
Yes. Oh, we didn't even say what the game is about. For people who don't know, basically, Michael Douglas is signed up by his good brother, Sean Penn, a good man who has no issues. And even when this movie came out, and he doesn't know what it is. He's told that kind of like stuff will happen to him. He will be involved in it. And then suddenly keys are given to him. He's given a note that says, like, follow this person. Someone asks for toilet paper, which he does not give, like an asshole.
Yeah. I'm not sure I would have.
Really?
Yeah.
I would have gone to the other stall and given it to the person who was asking for it. Because what if that happened to you?
I'd say, don't involve me in your business. That's what I would say.
Well, Will's about to go through a game situation. And he is, Michael Douglas, trying to live through, he's so sad in his giant mansion and his successful job.
Okay, can I say, tell me if you think this is fair or not, because I'm trying to work through my own ambivalence around this movie. It's very heavy. Like, there's no, like, it's a silly,
not many jokes.
It's a silly plot.
Yes.
And it's not a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's
and at the end of the day, what does it say?
It's Noah, the man who knew too little.
Yeah, well.
So, like, people could make the argument that it is basically a Christmas Carol, right? That it's like a rich miser who learns a bunch of lessons.
I guess.
And at the end, he's like, he's not even going to be like, I'm going to be a better man. He just reacts like, hey, all my friends and family got together and watched me kill myself.
Yeah.
and I feel better now.
To me, it doesn't have like the snap, the crackle of like a really fun thriller. Like, look at North by Northwest or something like that.
I agree.
To use the Hitchcock comparison.
But like, the problem with the game is that its lead, to me, is not as endearing as the lead of North by Northwest.
And there's no sense of fun there. Like,
No.
like so often he just approaches these movies, these like paperback airport things as like these lugubrious exercises. Now, I know that some critics like Dave Kerr have compared him to Otto Preminger, and especially
another
lugubrious
filmmaker.
But
Yes,
especially as the movies go along, like, and there are times when this comparison is like apt and points to like what's really good in him, like in Zodiac. Dave Kerr and others have pointed out that like there's the coolness of the style and all the long takes and the long shots suggest like an observer, he's not necessarily making judgments. He's letting things play out and letting you accumulate information. That's all good.
Yeah.
But then the game,
it's supposed to be exciting, and for me, I didn't find it that exciting. And especially in the way it just kind of like runs the clock. He like goes to Mexico, comes back. It's like there's no tension there. To me, while I was watching
I would agree. And I know that some people like this movie. Now,
some people love this movie.
Yeah. Well, what about The Social Network? Because now this is a movie that also has a very unlikable protagonist. In fact, a whole coterie of loathsome people in it.
Well,
and it's about Facebook.
And you take a step back, and what is A Social Network about? It's about every person in power right now.
Yes.
And how you get to this point. So whether it be about Facebook or anything like that, and it's fun. That's the thing about The Social Network,
so
right?
I love The Social Network.
Yeah.
Cards on the table. I think it's great. Like any good online leftist, I have my beefs with Aaron Sorkin.
Yeah, he sucks.
But, I mean...
that dialogue...
Man, this movie...
God, I would be exactly like Rooney Mara at the beginning of the movie, being like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, I'm tired of this conversation. Goodbye.
It's amazing how, like... Fincher takes all of Sorkin's good qualities and he neutralizes or tempers most of the bad ones. So like that opening scene, the dialogue, I mean, Sorkin's dialogue has never been more fun than it is in that opening scene.
Yeah, but the whole point of that
Rat-a-tat.
scene is a character being like, I don't want to have the Sorkin dialogue. You suck as a person for talking this way.
Yeah, and that's brilliant. And then, like, Sorkin, when he's left to his own devices, so often he'll sort of, like, valorize the main character.
Yeah, the great man, et cetera,
like
et cetera.
Steve Jobs,
Yeah.
right? Where it's like all of his flaws are basically in the service of his genius. And we need our Promethean geniuses.
Now, where do you come to this movie in the way that people say, like, Sorkin and Fincher are both coming at the same script in different ways.
So I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
I want to give. I mean, I think there's truth to it, but I also want to give Sorkin credit that like Sorkin is under no illusions about Facebook. He doesn't think Facebook's good or important.
Yeah.
And neither does Fincher.
I mean, Sorkin is also proudly a Luddite, so he's like, I don't even know what this stuff is.
Yeah, I mean, he loves Steve Jobs, but he doesn't care about Facebook. So they're basically just interested in these like small little men fighting for power. So that's interesting. But stylistically, like often when Sorkin is left to his own devices or he does his own thing, like, you know, there's like the walk and talk, there's the visual dynamism, the camera going here and there, the West Wing, you know? But in this movie, it's like Fincher cools it right down. You know, it's a lot of back and forth. The visual style, it's his usual palette, very sort of gray and overcast.
Well, okay, well, there's a big difference in this movie is that this is when he's starting to shoot on digital, which if you want to lay the blame at perhaps one person's feet of why everything on Netflix and streaming services looks the way that it does, Mr. Fincher is the man who kind of set the template with House of Cards on Netflix.
Yeah, and yeah, it's a cursed legacy, but you know, you can't blame the Wright brothers for every plane crash. What can you say?
You know what? And if he didn't do it, somebody else would. And like almost all of his movies as well. You know, we're saying like, these are just cheap paperback stuff. But like Seven, The Social Network, we are still living with the repercussions of what those movies did and the movies that followed. All those real life 10-episode streaming series that are just imitating The Social Hey,
oh my
you want to
God.
know about We Work? We Crash.
Yeah, no, truly, The Social Network created a genre that like, well, this week we got the Jerry Seinfeld Pop-Tart movie.
Well, that's not really
which is like, that's the Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein of this genre, you know?
But this movie, I think, is compelling.
Oh, yeah.
And it is a film that, like, the people are not good people. They're all trash. Throw them all in the garbage, I would say.
But the emotions are very human and recognizable.
Yeah.
You know, the striving for power is very recognizable. All of the things that motivate Mark Zuckerberg, where it's like after that first scene with the date where he gets broken up on.
But you know that actually that isn't true. And
yeah,
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. What does he do? He goes right back to his dorm and writes a horrible blog post about her. And then he creates a hot or not like app. I mean, all of that is horrible. And also like totally recognizable.
And what it boils down to at the end of the day is that Mark Zuckerberg is someone that wants to be cool and is jealous of people that get opportunities that he does not. And be in loser clubs with a bunch of losers.
Like there's a certain like class anxiety there because the Winklevoss twins are obviously in a much higher social class and like founding Facebook is their birthright.
Yeah, cannibal class.
But then also I think there's some ambivalence, some interesting ambivalence throughout the movie of, okay, the Andrew Garfield character, his loyal co-founder who he fucked over. And it's bad that he fucked him over, but also he did go to New York to get that internship. He wasn't 100% committed to the company. When Justin Timberlake as the Napster guy comes in and says, why are you bothering with him? You should come with me. Like I'm giving you all these great ideas. I'm the co-founder. Like the movie does sort of throw its hands up and say, well, you know,
did he do the right thing?
Like
probably not divesting his stock options to 0.03%.
That's all pretty bad, but like, but then also like that line that Mark Zuckerberg says where he's like, if you had founded Facebook, you would have founded Facebook. Like it's true. There's something to that. So like there's an ambivalence in the movie.
You can steal the idea though and do it, which I don't agree with. Those twins, get them out of here. They had nothing.
I don't like any of these people. No.
I know, but you find them compelling, which is important.
Yeah, and the human emotions are compelling. Actually, my biggest complaint about this movie, I think the one big artistic misstep it makes is in that last scene when Rashida Jones says to him, you're not a bad guy, you just think you have to be.
No, he is a bad guy.
He is a bad guy.
Yeah.
In fact, the opening scene established.
You're a bad guy and I'm breaking up with you.
These are the rules of the game.
Yes.
This character's a bad guy, now watch him be a bad guy. Why did they think they needed that thing at the end that sort of redeems
Because
him?
the movie cost $40 million and they felt that they maybe needed a sympathetic character that you would feel bad about at the end.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, it's just enough to have him clicking on Erica's Facebook page
It's like
again.
the classic, like, oh, you know, I say all this stuff, but I don't really mean it. And it's like, but you're saying it. So whether you mean it or not, at the end of the day, you're a bad guy.
We've seen no evidence that he's a good guy.
No, none.
But anyway,
He's just been an asshole the entire time.
Whatever, minor flaw, hugely watchable movie, really fun. And
taught me a lot of lessons.
Yeah, well, hey, here we are.
Yeah,
you know,
that's right. Sorry, your stock's been divested
soon
to
you'll be
0.0.
my Andrew Garfield. Yeah.
Who is my... Sorry, I'm getting together with the Blank Check Boys. They told me to divest you down. So if this movie works so well for you, and the game and Panic Room not so much, is it almost that like if he's doing these paperback kind of things, the best Fincher is the one that's not trying to like get you on the side of the characters? Like, for example, Gone Girls, really terrible characters in that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I like Gone Girl.
Yeah,
Gone Girl's fun.
And that's what The Killer is as well. So like maybe that's the Fincher sweet spot, House of Cards.
And also, I mean, he has journeyman-ish tendencies.
I mean, he would love to be a journeyman. Remember all these, like, I'm doing Mission Impossible 3. No, that's not working. I'm doing World War Z 2.
I mean, for all his, Kubrickian perfectionism and mystique, he does say in his interviews that he poo-poos the auteur theory. And
he just wants to work.
Like, he wants to tell stories. And, I mean, he is an auteur. He has these, recurring themes and motifs that occur in his movies. But, like, he's somebody who's also, I think, very much dependent on the material. Like, he doesn't always like turn a sow's ear into a silk purse.
Do you feel as well that like you are a little dampened in your enthusiasm because there is so much enthusiasm for him out in the world?
I'm sure.
Yeah, a little
it's not
bit.
like we're discovering him,
No, it's not. And I think that maybe just the kind of weight of David Fincher talk over the like 25 years that I've been into movies is like, all right, enough already.
Yeah.
But I will say that I did not see The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo when it came out, and I watched it a few months ago, and I liked it. It's good.
Yeah, he's a good filmmaker.
Yeah, he is a good
He's
filmmaker.
good at what he does.
He is. But like, what? I'm just fascinated of like, what would be like the ultimate Fincher project? I don't think there is one. Like one that would get you excited.
Well,
was he ever attached to that like Cleopatra movie that went around?
I think he was actually, yeah.
And it's just like that obsessive attention to detail is weirdly something that kind of like makes me less interested in him. I think of Steven Soderbergh, a fan of David Fincher, who went into a color session with him, and Fincher would point to the screen and be like, all right, I need 20% less black in that top left quadrant, and I need 35% more brightness in the top right, and then 3 grids up. And it's like, yeah, that's cool. But then again, when I watch the movie, I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good.
As time goes on, as I get older and grayer, like I become less compelled by like, that godlike, I keep saying Kubrickian, but what other word
That's
is
what
there
it
for
is.
it? Like when you're a teenager, or at least when I was a teenager, the idea of the director who like exerts this incredibly dominant control over the movie, the director who like has everything worked out, and if there are ambiguities, if there seem to be flaws, that's all part of the design because they are the god and they figured it out. And that it becomes less compelling to me as I get older. And sometimes I like to see the wind in the trees a little bit more, as the great D.W. Griffith once said.
Now there's
an unproblematic director. But don't you agree? Like,
no, I agree.
Like,
what obsesses me as a fan of filmmakers is intent, less control. Because control, you choke the thing. It's hermetically sealed.
Right.
So that makes me uninterested in it. Especially the more I learn about how much control somebody showed over something, that I'm like, ugh, no, thank you.
I mean, the fact that like somebody like Steven Soderbergh, who works at this really rapid rate,
yes.
Or somebody like a completely different kind of filmmaker, but like somebody like Hong Sang-soo, who like gets his crew of like 6 people together twice a year, and it's just like, okay, here's sort of an idea for a movie, and let's see what happens. And the fact that those movies all sort of look the same, but then there's this like air in the room that leads to all these strange like variations.
But that's what you want.
Shifts. That's what I like. That's increasingly what I like in movies.
I absolutely agree with you. Even though when David Fincher has a new movie coming out, I'll be excited.
I always see them. The Killer, I thought was terrific.
Playing exactly to, I feel, David Fincher's particular strengths.
What I liked about The Killer is it basically works first and foremost as a really good thriller, and it has a lot of stuff on its mind that's there.
Yeah.
And that's like,
but you don't have to focus on
Yeah.
it. Like, speaking of just enjoying these movies as opposed to David Fincher projects, The Killer gets so much more interesting knowing that David Fincher made it because it's about him. It's basically
Yes.
a biopic.
Yes.
I mean, let me get that old, dusty thing that everyone has said in the last like year and change since the movie came out. So as per usual, you can send us letters at importantcinemaclubpodcast@gmail.com. And our first letter is from Courtney Fusco, and they go, Hey, Justin and Will. On your recommendation, I've been reading some of Jonathan Rosenbaum's criticism of late, and I've encountered a detail I'd like to hear your opinion on. Why did he go to France? Do you have any more information about that? About his time in Paris?
Wait, did he go to Paris? Is that true?
That's new to me. I love that we can get people to read Jonathan Rose. That rules.
Oh, man.
In his essay on Fargo and the Decalogue, Rosenbaum argues that a filmmaker's work can be judged by the character of the discussion prompted after seeing the movie. Based on this rubric, he deems the Decalogue more worthy of serious consideration than Fargo. Well, number one, the Decalogue is like multiple movies, so you will have more to talk about it than that. The Kieslowski films encourage ethical debate, whereas the Coens film, he argues, elicits insipid discussions around whether or not the events of the film really happened.
Well, so I'll just say, and I would maybe need to read that review again to give J-Ro a fair shake on this, but I think there's more than that, and there has been more to say about Fargo than that.
The letter continues, this seems to me a novel way to approach the question of quality. In most cases, such evaluation usually revolves around 1, the enjoyability of the film, 2, the historical importance of the film, 3, the auteur's reading of how the film fits into the filmmaker's body of work. Ugh, no thank you. And 4, the film's synthesis of form and content. So what say you? You're far more versed in Rosenbaum's writing than I am. Do you think this is how he honestly evaluates film? Do you think it's a fair way to evaluate the quality of a work? I mean, there's a lot of variables there.
Yeah, I would say that, like, judging the quality of the discussion you have after is a highly personal thing.
Yeah, I do it on the Peter meter.
That's right.
1 to 5.
I think different people are going to have different perspectives on different kind of movies. And like, I think somebody will have a lot of interesting things to say about a movie that somebody else will have nothing interesting to say about, and vice versa.
To be like, that's fine. I don't think judging a film on how much discussion it warrants, even though I'd say again, J-Ro, you're cheating there. That's like 10 movies, I think.
Also, a bad movie can inspire lots of discussion.
Lots of discussion.
There's a lot you can say about the Jerry Seinfeld Pop-Tart movie.
And which you can on this week's Michael and Us, last week's Michael and Us.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen, you know?
The people demand it. So that's actually an interesting kind of breakdown of how to judge the quality of the work, but again, I don't think it really matters at the end of the day.
I mean, to that list, I would add like socio-political factors. You know, what is the movie saying about the times?
How many laughs did I have during the film if it's a comedy?
And as you say, the Peter meter, you know.
The most important of all rating systems.
That's right.
It all comes down to some sums, and if they're up or they're down.
That's right. But what about there's see it, there's skip it, but then there's also rent it for something that you would
good,
rent.
bad, or something I kind of liked. And the letter continues, as a follow-up, as I've been greatly enjoying the serious, thoughtful approach of Rosenbaum's writing, are there other similar film essayists you recommend? I also enjoy the work of Robin Wood and Carol Clover, if that is helpful. No.
No, there are no good critics. Hey, you know, have you read Jay Hoberman? Jay Hoberman's good. Andrew Saris, you know, who's somebody who's not a million years old that we can recommend?
Will Sloan and Justin DeClue.
That's
so
right.
You're doing it right now.
Oh, yes.
I like to
follow Branson Reese on Letterboxd.
He's so funny.
Yeah.
That rules. Nick Pinkerton's writing is
Nick
very
Pinkerton
good.
is good.
Violet Luca's very good too.
Violet Luca,
so
yes.
basically people that we know.
Yeah.
Angelo Murata is very good.
From
and I
Toronto.
very much enjoy him as well.
Hey, you know, Dennis Lim, I was just reading his book about Hong Sang-soo, Speak of the Devil. He's a great critic.
And we're probably missing a lot more as we go along.
That's right.
But some of those people are not our friends.
That's
so,
right.
You know,
I've never met Dennis Lim.
Nope. Speaking of, you know, critics, didn't we both buy that book from like the Marxist critic that died in like 1930 something?
Oh, yeah. I was reading it. I liked it. What's his name?
Good.
Do you have it in front of you?
It's currently on my shelf.
Right. We both bought this book because Rosenbaum recommended it. The Compound Cinema, the film writings of Harry Allen Potamkin.
Very good.
A Marxist critic who died in the 30s. But I mean, some of his work feels very contemporary. If you can find a rare copy of that.
Would recommend. All right, so we have one more letter here, and we're about to go after dark. Ooh. So it's from loyal listener Conrad, and he goes, New York porn for beginners.
Okay.
Hey guys, Not only am I not tired of hearing you talk about 70s pornography, but I actually would like to learn much more about the environment under which this industry flourished, particularly in New York City. Could you recommend any books or documentaries for someone who wants an introductory overview of the subject? Thank you and keep up the great work, Conrado.
You want to check out the podcast, The Rialto Report.
Absolutely.
The Rialto Report. Some of those episodes are just amazing.
What is that oral history that's like something XXX? I have it on my shelf.
The Other Hollywood.
The Other Hollywood, that's right.
Yeah, that's a good book. But yeah, returning to the Rialto Report, I mean, if you look at any of their, I mean, all their episodes are good, but some of the early episodes where it's these long interviews with porn world figures, like, the interview was with Constance Money, Herschel Savage, Wakefield Poole, Arbola, Larry Ravine, the guy who shot Deep Throat, Hoa Fernandez. That's a good one.
There is a surprising lack of books on like the advent of pornography that is not an academic thesis or like my days in porn and like jokey-ish in the way that it's approached.
Yeah, so I think the Rialto Report is honestly probably the best source.
Because every time we mention it, like people's hats fly off. They can't believe we're talking about it.
Oh, I would also recommend, just as a movie, maybe check out Annie Sprinkle's Her Story of Porn, which is her sort of like one-woman show. Now, mind you, you will see some startling images in it, to be clear. So
yeah, you close those blinds,
proceed
lock
with
those
caution.
doors, and do not check out, even though it's so tempting, a little film called Rated X starring Emilio Estevez and Charlie Sheen.
Yeah, that movie's pretty bad.
How is it bad? It's like about the filmmakers who made Behind the Green Door, and it's so boring.
Should he watch Inside Deep Throat, that documentary?
I don't even remember that one. I know that's the one that
The
always
Ron
popped.
Howard produced one, right? Or Brian Grazer. I mean, it's not that good.
No,
but
it's not.
It has all the major players in it.
And go pick up some Vinegar Syndrome Blu-rays. What are the ones that you would be like, you got to watch these ones?
Oh, I mean, if you can find it, that Gerard Damiano one, Memories Within Miss Aggie.
Yeah, but that's just the movie. You're not going to get much context out of that.
That's true.
Because I think there's a commentary maybe on that one, but that's it. Are there any, like, I think of the release of Taboo, which has like everyone involved on that disc talking about it.
Yeah.
Will's looking at my shelf. I don't have that many up there.
Actually, if you can find the Blu-ray of the opening of Misty Beethoven.
That one's so hard to find though. Yeah.
If I were to recommend just like one like porn movie from the 70s to watch, not even the best one, but just one to watch, the opening of Misty Beethoven. Just because it's like
Radley Metzger.
It's one of a kind. It represents the pinnacle of like artistic ambition in them, but it's also a New York porn movie and has all those people in it.
And that DVD, I think it got a Blu-ray too, but it was like through the company and it's like gone now.
Yeah.
It was so good because Metzger was on it talking about it and tons of people as well, given the context that you want and the scene that it came up in.
They have to re-release that at some point, right?
Yeah, it's one of those ones that I feel is probably caught in the like weird copyright hell that like, because it would have come out by now, because that is like one of the big one, along
Maybe
with
his estate, because I think Metzger owns that movie, or somebody, his estate owns it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so hopefully there's some stuff. I mean, we just said all the obvious stuff,
Yeah.
but there's some stuff that you hadn't heard that you can go and discover. This week on the Patreon, we are talking about Little Shop of Horrors. Wait. Didn't you already talk about Little Shop of Horrors? Well, we didn't talk about the musical version.
so right, we talked about the Corman one, and I was surprised when you said we hadn't talked about the Moranis joint.
I mean, unless I missearch, but like when I search it, like the film group, we did an episode on Film Group, the Roger Quara Patreon episode.
Yeah.
But there isn't one on the Frank Oz, Rick Moranis starring musical extravaganza. So that's what we will be talking on this week's Patreon. So next week, we are finally to one of our listeners who's very active in the Discord. He's going to lose his top because we're going to talk about a Norwegian filmmaker. Now, who's your favorite Norwegian filmmaker, Will?
Oh, hang on. I am Googling Norwegian filmmakers. My favorite Norwegian filmmaker is, Harold Zawart.
Oh, and what did they direct? Will is typing still.
A little movie called The Karate Kid with Jackie Chan. Another movie called Agent Cody Banks.
All right, that doesn't count.
The Pink Panther 2.
Nope. We will be talking about someone whose name I'm about to mispronounce. Vibeke Løkkeberg. There's a little, line through the O in that classic Norwegian style.
Oh, I can't. That'll defeat me, but whatever. And this is a filmmaker whose top film has 80 logs on Letterboxd.
80 logs. Look, I'm not going to tell people, because it seems that these films are mostly unavailable, that if you join our Discord, maybe someone who will be very excited about us doing this episode has a whole Google Drive of all the important Norwegian filmmakers organized with English subtitles.
But we're not telling you
We're not telling you that.
Yeah.
So her films include such pictures as Camilla, a documentary called Tears of Gaza that came out in 2010, and Wild the Wild One. In a rural western town in 1890, a woman has a mute old daughter after relations with her stepfather. Whoa, boy! It sounds like some juicy drama right there. I'm excited. I love watching, she has a very small filmography and going in an area that I don't think we've ever discussed before on this podcast.
Yeah, let's make some discoveries.
So that's what we'll be doing next week. And until then, my name's Justin DeGlue.
I'm Will Sloan.
Thanks for listening. As per usual, I would like to thank Rex, Giordano, Garlic Fred, Bornstein Gislason, Elliot Burrows, Calvin Vaughn, Guy Nelson, John Otto, Giallo Zilla, and Jason Reed. Thank you all for becoming patrons. We could not keep doing this without you.
So, Justin, I went on the weekend to Hollywood Canteen.
Oh, that is the mecca for Toronto film nerds who want books in very, very dark places. Have you noticed, even if you go in the middle of the day, there's sections where, there's no light except for maybe one shining on you, and it keeps going off, too, if you don't move enough?
Oh, I love it. So, Hollywood Canteen is located in the east end of Toronto. Mm-hmm. It's on the subway line.
It's existed for 200 years.
And it is, the best film bookstore. I mean, let's exclude LA. Mm-hmm. It's the best film bookstore on this continent, anywhere that's not LA.
Now, will you find deals? No.
But you won't find absurd prices.
No, if you live in Toronto, secret tip, if you go on Abe Books, they have their entire stock documented on there. So you can search to know if they'll have something when you go and check it out.
But the real thrill is just going there and
looking through the sections,
making incredible discoveries. They have all the Bear Manor Media books. They have Scarecrow Press, the most
They do not have all the Bear Manor Media books.
Nobody has all them. But they have a lot of them, okay? Yes. A lot of books, they're the most expensive shelf is
at the back.
Okay, there's that, but at the front there's that shelf where it's all the books the monogram checklist.
Oh, that's what I mean, at the behind the counter.
Right. Or I was coveting this book of the B Western actors.
Actors?
Yeah, an encyclopedia of B Western actors.
Oh, I have the B Western directors book I bought from there, which is great.
So I have one. I have a B. It might be the same book.
I think it's the same one. Now, when you saw that I had it, you're like, I need to get it. Yes.
That book is a thing of beauty, and I think I paid $50 for it.
Which is a steal, I have to say.
And I had to, and it's a great book. But so I was there, just looking around. I can only go there 2 or 3 times a year because it'll bankrupt me.
Yeah. But you're not a poster guy. You don't look through their posters, do you?
Well, I did this time.
Okay, because that's where the money, I hear, is how they continue to survive.
I got a couple lobby cards.
Did you? What'd you get?
Batman, Tim Burton. Mm-hmm. I got 2 Tim Burton Batman lobby cards, which look great, and I got a Big Brawl Jackie Chan lobby card.
Oh, that's cool.
But then, just looking at the books, minding my own business.
Now, we've discussed this place before because you found Larry Fine's biography there.
I found Larry Fine's autobiography.
Very rare biography.
Self-published. I could never find it anywhere.
Now, did you just stumble upon that one, or did you ask? Were you looking for it?
Well, I was looking at the Three Stooges section.
And did the guy come over? And
the guy was like, we have Stroke of Luck.
And you were like,
and I was like, John, hit the floor. I was like, yes.
Yeah.
I will take Stroke of Luck. Horrible book, by the way. But
we talked about it.
But then, speaking of the Three Stooges, I mosey on over to the Three Stooges section.
I love that they have a Three Stooges section.
That's the quality of bookstore that we have here. And they have, hot off the presses, new editions of this book called A Tour de Farce, The Complete History of the Three Stooges on the Road by Gary Lassen, who runs the Three Stooges Journal. He runs the Stoogium.
So this is the top guy.
Yeah, he is the king of knowing about the Three Stooges. And this book is 800 pages.
Oh my God.
It is a year by year breakdown of
every stop they made,
every show the Stooges ever did.
Okay, big question to start this discussion off, which I know you haven't read the entire book. You're working your way through it.
I mean,
what am I going to get out of this book?
I'm so glad you asked.
Yes.
Because Because you'd think, oh, well, this is just esoteric. Who cares that they performed
like they stopped
in
on this date
Montana,
and did this. Yeah.
And it has all those details. First of all, it's year by year. And
now I know you skipped right to Toronto, right?
Yes.
When you know that your dad went to that Three Stooges show.
2-page spread of the Stooges in front of like 50,000 people.
They look like the Beatles.
At the band shell at the CNE.
Okay, can you imagine? I'm sure we've talked about this before, but I need to paint a picture again of you are sitting there thousands of feet away. A guy that kind of looks like Curly is like slightly being tapped on the head live for your enjoyment. Like, what bits would they do?
Someone, a mutual friend of ours, was telling me, because I posted a photo of this, and he said, "Oh, my dad went to this show."
Every dad's.
He said it
went
was
to
the
that.
most disappointing he's ever been. So anyway, but what do you get out of this book? First of all, it has like so many pictures. The pictures are amazing. But year by year, it begins with like a summary of the year, and then it goes to, notes on every individual tour. And in the summary of the year, you follow the rise and fall and rise and fall and rise again of the Three Stooges.
Now, what information is it giving you? Like, is it painting a story?
It does paint a story.
Wow.
So in those summaries, like there's a lot
So it's
of
basically like a biography through the tours that they took.
Exactly. Every year begins with like a summary of this was what the year was, and then it goes to stop by stop. And the stop by stop, that's where the freaks congregate. That's where we're like, oh, this was their first time in Montana. That's interesting. but the introductory essay to each chapter is like, it's the early 1950s. The market for their shorts is running dry. They're not getting as many opportunities. For the first time, the Stooges manager puts an ad in Variety saying the Stooges are available. They're seeking work, but they're not getting work.
Now, did you go to the time that they toured with Mr. Ron Ormond?
Yes, I did. That was in the Shemp era. And you get the sense that was a really grueling tour because they weren't doing like week-long engagements. They were doing one-night stands, one after another, one southern town after another. Like that's hard work. But then that was kind of like their last big hurrah for a while because they're doing performances throughout the 50s. Like in 1953, it's like this year the Stooges tried to reinvent themselves as a Las Vegas nightclub act. Did not work out. They were fired from the Flamingo Hotel. So all that happens, mid 1950s, like they're dead. Okay. They're barely even filming at Columbia anymore. They make 9 shorts a year that take 9 days to film. Okay. But then in 1958, there's an engagement over the Christmas season that they do with Curly Joe in like the East Coast that, it was a hotel that was like, well, we don't get any business this time of year anyway. So why don't we do a show for the kids? We'll have the Three Stooges. Beatlemania style reception.
Now, at this point, they're on TV, right?
That's right.
And that's a big difference.
Yeah. It's like they play to something like 30,000 kids.
I think you could maybe see that happen when in the classic Mel Gibson produced The Three Stooges.
The TV biopic.
Because isn't that how it ends? That they
That's
go
right.
and do the show and it's like, oh!
And like the early 1960s, it's madness. They do so many gigs and they are going everywhere. Okay. Like every like opening of a car park, every
There's
like
nothing too small for the Stooges.
every opening of a supermarket.
Just stand there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because like does it say what bits that they do? That like one slap, 2 eye pokes.
Well, actually, it's interesting because so by the time the Curly Joe era comes around,
we can't dedicate a whole episode to this because I know that you want to. You're like
I
vibrating.
could talk
with
about it all
excitement.
day. By the time the 60s roll around, you're getting fewer like reviews quoted because by the 60s they're firmly a kids act, so no critic is reviewing them, even though they're more popular than ever. But in the 40s and 50s, they're performing for adults, and critics are reviewing them, and so you're getting actual like firsthand testimony of what these acts were, and you get a sense. I mean, they had the same act that they did for a really long time. Like when Shemp comes in, it's the same act, but it's with Shemp, but every single review they quote, it's sort of like the critic is always like, well, for those who like rough and tumble mayhem, the Three Stooges are bringing their unsophisticated brand of slapstick. And what can you say? They aim for the funny bone and they get it. People laugh. That's the tone of every single review.
And is many of them quoted in this book?
Many are quoted.
To get to 800 pages?
It's so every detail you could possibly want is in this book. And it is absurdly expensive, this book.
Really?
I paid over $100 for it.
Holy moly. It's not like a print-on-demand book that you can get in like...
It's beautiful hardcover.
Wow.
This guy, Gary Lassen, I don't know what his financial situation is that he can run a... Is he an oil billionaire? Like,
because he runs the Three Stooges, which we've talked about before. one of the best museums we've ever been to.
One of the best museums in the world, and not that. Yeah, move over the Louvre.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not that accessible. You have to call in advance, and you get in there, and it's like.
Yep.
So when he dies, I hope there's a succession plan because holy shit.
I mean, isn't there, you know, a little brush with greatness when you were asked to send the interview, your Stooge magazine?
I mean, this was huge. So in the current issue of the Three Stooges Journal, which is the official paper of record of the Three Stooges, they did ask me for my interview with Emil Sitka's son.
So they reprinted it.
They reprinted it. So I think that's in the current issue.
Because you don't want to be reviewed in the Three Stooges Journal.
Hey, I would love to be reviewed in the Three Stooges Journal. So for those who don't know, I recently published my own Three Stooges zine, and it's called the Journal of Stoogeological Studies. It has a lot of great contributors in it. You can get it on Amazon. And yeah, I haven't seen the latest issue of the Three Stooges Journal yet.
I mean, you're a subscriber, right? So
I think it might have lapsed. I have to resubscribe. Yeah, I know.
Oh man, I hope he doesn't listen to this. Oh, what is the book called again? I was looking for it.
A Tour de Farce.
Your book actually comes up like fifth if you search basically Three Stooges, and I wrote on tour.
Oh man, the idea that everybody, I don't care how much it costs, everybody has to get a Tour de Farce, the complete history of the Three Stooges on the road. It's like, you know, there are people who like have done this for, you know, the Beatles or Bob Dylan or, you know, real recording artists who've minutely documented every tour stop, every evolution. The fact that somebody's done it for the Three Stooges, I think that's so powerful and beautiful.
I mean, the only person who could. I'm looking here. Click to buy a Tour de Farce today. You can get it from tourdefarce.net. Oh man, they know how much expensive it is because you got to click through to get to the price of it that you are committing.
It's worth every penny. This is an heirloom, this book.
Oh, $50 US from the official website. Yeah. So there you go.